Let's turn to this now. News from neighboring Zimbabwe. The country's governing party, Zanu PF, wrapping up its annual conference where an extension of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's tenure will likely be endorsed. The decision follows a controversial resolution passed last year to extend Mnangagwa's rule to 2030. This move has widened cracks within the ruling party. Joining us now for a discussion is Jealousy Mawarire, retired journalist and political commentator. Jealousy, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Tabo, for having me.
Is there media ban on the outcome of this conference? We are seeing very little, except for the fact that Chiwenga was once again fiery yesterday.
No, the resolutions are out. They have adopted that the president should go on until 2030, and they've set actually a committee and instructed the Minister of Justice to push, who is the legal secretary in Zanu PF, to look at ways how the Constitution can be amended in order to extend the president's stay in power to 2030. And they want to do that also by changing the Constitution and avoiding the constitutional requirement of going to the people through a referendum.
Yeah, so they seem they've completely ignored the issues that Chiwenga was raising.
Yes, it's not actually not only having the president go up to 2030, but there's a whole concerted effort, and there are documents that we have actually stumbled upon which recommend that there should be a 10-year ban on elections, and the president can actually go up to 2035. That would make him president of Zimbabwe for 18 years. Clearly, there's a concerted effort to get us back to where we were with President Mugabe, and President Mnangagwa has actually hoodwinked a lot of people, even other SADC countries, that he was getting in to correct the past, and he was going to be just a 10-year president. Yeah. But we have seen with moves that are going on now that he's keen on staying in power for as long as is possible. He's 87 years old now, although officially he claims to be 83. And if you add 10 more years to that, that will be 93 officially, and that will be the age when President Mugabe was ousted from power. So we are heading back to where we were. It's a disaster. It's a national disaster.
Is this not stirring up any tensions?
That's exactly what he's doing. He's fomenting confusion and conflict within his own party, yeah. But he's also creating problems within SADC, because if you ban elections, it means there are very limited ways that people will express their concern, or they would change leadership. So we might end up having another Madagascar, and South Africa as the next SADC chairperson who have to deal with Madagascar and deal with the problems that are in Zimbabwe. Yeah. And that's not only that. They are not only just changing the Constitution in order to make the president stay in power up to 2030, but they've also passed the resolution that the 15th of September will become a national holiday. That's his birthday. And it's christened Munumutapa Day. And Munumutapa was an ancient Shona monarchy. So definitely he wants to introduce a monarchy. And the first step that he has done is to declare his birthday as a Munumutapa Day. He is not a descendant of the Munumutapa, but clearly the guy has stolen elections. He is now he's moving towards stealing royalty. And this is meant to avoid elections. And once he has declared the Zimbabwe monarchy, he would have avoided elections. And parallel to that, there is a young man that he has been pushing around. Yeah. And this young man has
to come to that, does he have his own succession plan?
Yeah, he has his own succession plan. But on this front, the attempt to make Zimbabwe a monarchy, he is pushing a young man who has been writing letters to every government department, seeking to be recognized as King Munumutapa. And we thought the guy was delusional. But now when we see the concomitant declaration that the president's birthday is now called Munumutapa, then it's beginning to make sense. Yeah. The guy is also moving towards exploring making himself a monarchy and be at the helm of Zimbabwe for as long as possible without elections.
And the context of the Vision 2030 National Covenant that should reflect collective purpose, where does this put the relationship between him and his vice president?
It's actually an indication that there's conflict within the cockpit, because the vice president is going by the book to say 2030 is an AU Sustainable Development Resolution that Zimbabwe adopted and localized. Yeah. It's supposed to be a national vision to advance economic development in the country. It's not supposed to be tied to the particular tenure of a president. It actually, if you read the AU documents, it's tied even to the Vision 2063. So it's a national vision, it's a continental vision that the country has adopted for sustainable development. It's nothing to do with extending the particular stay in office of a particular president. This idea of tying everything on a mortal being is not how countries are run.
Yeah. Is this likely going to raise any challenge, however, it might not really end up anywhere, but from opposition parties?
It's, there are groupings like the Constitutional Defense Forum, which has been declaring that the Constitution is sacrosanct. Yeah. And therefore, any moves to mutilate or change the Constitution unprocedurally will be met with court challenges, will be met with demonstrations, will be met by any kind of civic disobedience against what the president is trying to do. And we await to see whether this will galvanize Zimbabweans, and that Zimbabweans will stand up and say enough is enough. And what I'm seeing actually is that the president has created problems for himself, because the guy could have just gone up to 2028 when his term ends and retires peacefully. But this idea of trying to some political gymnastics and skullduggery in order to extend his stay in office so that he extends the looting, because there is massive looting of national resources. You can see, even here in South Africa, there's a report that was done by the Financial Intelligence Unit, which traced the Financial Intelligence Center in South Africa, which traced money laundering involving 2 billion rand, which involved a South African company and the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and an individual called Chivayo, who is always around the president. And this is a guy that the president moves around with in his presidential helicopter. Wherever he goes, this guy is not in government. This guy has no known business that he runs. The only thing that is infamous, formerly infamous of, was getting a tender for $100 million United States dollars to build a solar plant. And the guy didn't do anything. He was paid $5 million in front. He misused the $5 million. He didn't do anything. He didn't even buy one solar panel. But this is the guy that is moving with the president. And there was some time at a press conference when the president was asked about this particular guy, implicated in the Financial Intelligence Center report. And the president was so angry with the reporter who asked him. He says, no, this guy is a philanthropist, he's not a thief. You are having a president who is defending a guy alleged to have been involved in money laundering involving 2 billion rand here in South Africa. The document, I have it. If you want it, I can actually give it to you off air, so that you guys can.
They have it as well. So
the Financial Intelligence Center in Zimbabwe was given that report, and nothing has been done. No, the Zimbabwe Republic Police didn't follow up on that. The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission hasn't done anything on the individual.
Now, talk to me about what the divisions at the highest level of the organization really mean. I mean, does Chiwenga hold any sway in that leadership?
Of course he does, because we have reports that on Thursday there was some skirmishes between suspected members of the military and some delegates at the conference. There were delegates who were alleged to have been organizing to boo the vice president. And apparently this riled the military. And some of the guys were fished during the night. And I don't know what happened to them, but there were some run-ins with members of the security services. So this conflict in the cockpit has cascaded actually into the body politic in Zimbabwe and into the general polity and citizenry, because here is an onslaught on the country's constitution. We thought in 2013 we had dealt with life presidents when we introduced the 10-year terms. But here comes a president who purports to be a lawyer and a constitutionalist coming in, and he's in his last term, and he has begun moves to go for a third term. And according to the documents that were prepared by a South African registered political consultancy company run by some Zimbabweans here in South Africa called Shikamo, the guy is not just planning for a third term, he's actually planning to go on a fourth term. That's why they want to suspend elections for 10 years, to take us to 2035. That would do Mnangagwa 18 years. And 18 years by the Zimbabwean constitution currently will be 4 terms.
Yeah. So you are saying this 10-year suspension of elections is written in the resolutions?
No, it's not written in the resolutions, but it's written in documents that inform the process that is going to that are going to lead to the implementation of this resolution. Okay. And that document was done on consultants' basis by Professor Jonathan Moyo, working with that political consultants firm that I alluded to, which is based here in South Africa.
So now, I mean, is this now adopted as the way in which the constitution of Zimbabwe is going to operate, or are there still processes coming out of the Zanu PF?
There are still processes that are going to be led by the Minister of Justice, right, who is the Zanu PF legal secretary. And he is the person that is in contact with Professor Jonathan Moyo. And we have in our possession even briefs that were written to the Minister of Justice by Professor Jonathan Moyo on how the Constitution can be changed in order primarily to run away from provisions in the Constitution which require that we go for a referendum. Section 38 of the Constitution demands that if you change anything if you change the Constitution and any constitutional provision that has to do with term limit, and that has to do with the land in Zimbabwe, and that has to do with fundamental human rights in Zimbabwe, you have to submit the changes to a referendum. And they know definitely that they are going to lose, but because 99.4% of Zimbabweans voted for this constitution and voted for the provisions in the constitution, especially the safeguards on a president that would want to go over and over beyond 10 years without observing the constitution. We have enough measures in the constitution to safeguard that. So now what they want to do is to amend Section 92 of the Constitution, remove the requirement that the president is elected directly. And what they wanted to do this year, and I think they are going to do, that's why the resolution is saying that the amendments that need to be done are supposed to be done before October 2026. President Mnangagwa hits 3 years in office on 4 September 2026. Yeah. So the constitutional provision is that it states that if a president does 3 years and above, it's considered a full term. So they want to amend Section 92 of the Constitution before Mnangagwa gets to 3 years in his second term, to avoid the constitutional provision which bars a president that has done 2 terms from re-election. So what they are going to do is, the time that you would have done from last year, from 4 September 2023, 4 September 2023, up to, let's say, 3rd of September 2026. That will be 2 years, 364 days. Right. That will be less than a year, less than 3 years, isn't it, by 1 day. Yeah. So if they manage to get to that, they would then say the president has served less than a term. Therefore, he stands a chance to be re-elected after they have changed the constitution, because they want to change the constitution in such a way that Parliament, in such a way that Parliament chooses the president, like what you do here in South Africa. Right. So once that amendment to Section 92, or the repealing of Section 92, is put into effect, it means that the current president's term of office will be legally nullified. So he has to seek a new mandate, and a new mandate now from Parliament. But here is the challenge. The term of office of the president and the term of office of Parliament run coterminously. They run concurrently. In actual fact, the term of office of Parliament is tied to the president's term of office. So once you cut short the president's term of office, it means also, by operation of law, the term of office of Parliament should be cut short. And therefore, we should go for a general election. But these guys don't want a general election. So they've introduced what they call a deeming provision. And a deeming provision at law is a fictitious law. So they are creating a fictitious law to say, no, when the president's term of office ends by the introduction of a new constitutional requirement that the president is elected through Parliament, then the president is then deemed elected without even going for an election. That's the legal gymnastics that they are doing. And there's a lot of money that has been put into this process. You can actually find out that even the consultations, because the Constitution demands that if you want to change any legal provision, there should be public consultations. So the public consultations have been designed in such a way that they have become, like in Zimbabwe, we have what we call an OK Grand Challenge, where the supermarket actually has maybe 12, 10 cars that they reward customers with. So they've actually adopted that situation that people who would come for these public consultations have to register online. And after registering online, they stand to win laptops, they stand to win cell phones, and they stand to win 11 cars. There are 11 double cab Ford Rangers. For participating. In the consultation process. And you wonder, what's the motive? Why incentivizing people? If this cry for the president to be elected through Parliament, or the abolition of elections for the next 10 years, if it is coming from the people, why are you incentivizing people to come and air their views on the particular subject? Just you're out of time. Let's leave it there. Much appreciated, and thank you for coming on. Thank you for having me. That's Mawarire, retired journalist and political commentator. Of course, we will reach out to Zanu PF following, of course, the resolutions that they have reached and what we hear tonight, to get them to reply to some of these issues that are being raised.